Hi Tacoma, welcome back to TV Teaching for 2nd grade. I'm Mrs. Ozolin. Today is Thursday, October 1st, and we are going to build some strong writing habits today. Just some reminders, I will be here every weekday at 10:30 and 2:30 on the television or anytime on YouTube on Tacoma Schools channel. Let's start by checking in with our zones. Before we started filming, Mr. Kevin and I were noticing something about Chili. He seems pretty relaxed, almost too relaxed. Chili, what's going on? You're laying down, you're kind of slumped, your eyes are half open. What are you feeling? Bored? You're bored? He's bored. Chili, one thing you can do when you're bored is use a mindful jar. The mindful jar will kind of help wake you up and make you feel a little more focused. Friends, you'll remember we've been working with the mindful jar as a tool for us to help us with our emotions this week. The mindful jar works because it's oil and water and they don't mix. So they stay separated. And what you do with a mindful jar is if you just kind of shake it up or twist it, there's bubbles. And you can look at the bubbles, and if Chili is bored, the bubbles might wake up his brain and give him something to do. They might offer some inspiration for something that you could do. Maybe the bubbles are thinking that you could go blow bubbles outside. The mindful jar also works if you're feeling something in the red zone where maybe you're out of control, because it gives you something else to focus on. And it's also rather calming watching the bubbles settle. If you're in the yellow zone where your brain feels like it's kind of buzzing or there's a lot of energy, the bubbles, when they settle, also help all of your thoughts settle. Also helps my body feel calm. Chili, did that help? Are you feeling a little more alert? Good. I'm glad that was helpful for you. Before we get started, I want to review some strong learner habits. When you're on the television or computer with me or on the computer with your teacher, you're a strong learner when you're on time, when you have your supplies, you make sure you're comfortable, when you're a strong listener, when you use think time, when you talk to your learning buddy about your ideas, and remember questions that you have that you can either send to me after this or make sure you reach out to your teacher and they can answer them as well. The supplies that you're going to need today are your learning buddy. Make sure they're awake and not too bored. You're also going to need a pencil, and from your 2nd grade ELA packet that you should have gotten from your teacher a couple weeks ago, there's a page in there called My Best Story. And this is a writing graphic organizer that we're going to use to help us organize our thinking today as a writer. So as I walk over to the screen and get myself ready, I want you to get your materials ready, and I'll meet you over there. We've been working on becoming stronger writers. Writers use their small moments, those seemingly ordinary everyday things that happen that they can write about. They also use their imagination. You might remember from the book Let's Do Nothing, where Sid and Frankie used their imagination to make some pretty incredible things happen. You can do that too as a writer. We've also been talking about what writers do when they get stuck. One of the things that writers do is reach out to other people for inspiration or support or ideas. You also have an ideas list graphic organizer that could be a resource for you for topics of things that you can write about. Today I want to teach you that writers use the special things in their life, people, places, events, for inspiration. We're going to read a story, and this is called The Best Story. It's written by Eileen Spinelli, and the illustrations are by Anne Wilsdorf. And before we actually read the story, I want to introduce you to the author of this story. Her name is Eileen Spinelli, and this is what she looks like. These are 3 other examples of books that Eileen Spinelli has written. And Eileen Spinelli says that she gets her ideas by looking at the world around her. For example, she goes into a pet stop and sees a pile of kittens piled up, and she gets inspiration from that. Or she's reading the newspaper and she reads about something called a whooping crane, and she gets ideas from that. She also looks at old family photos for inspiration and ideas about what she can write about. One thing that Eileen Spinelli says that the best thing a writer can do is keep your eyes and your ears and your heart open to the world around you. Take some think time and think about, what do you think she meant by that? Tell your learning buddy, what do you think she meant by writers? The best thing writers can do is keep their eyes and ears and hearts open. You might have said that when your eyes are open, you are seeing things all around you that can offer inspiration. Same with hearing and your heart. This story is called The Best Story, and it's about a character who is trying to write the best story, and she's having a hard time finding some inspiration. Now, thinking back to our reading lesson earlier this week, what do you think the purpose of this book is? Why do you think Eileen Spinelli wrote this book? Keep that in mind as we read. Let's see what happens. The Red Brick Library was having a contest. Write the best story, win first prize. First prize was a ride on the Super Duper Looper roller coaster with my favorite author, Anne Miles, who wrote The Runaway Roller Coaster. Wow! First prizes don't get any better than that. I ran home, went to my room, shut the door. I sharpened 5 pencils, opened my notebook to a brand new page, and thought, and thought, and thought. All I could think was this writing stuff was hard and lonely. Maybe I needed help. I told my brother Tim about the contest. The best stories, said my brother Tim, have lots of action. The character in this story is having a really hard time coming up with some ideas to write about. So what she's going to do is reach out to her family members for inspiration, and they're all going to give her ideas to make her story the best story. Let's keep reading and see what they come up with. So I wrote a lot of action into my story. I wrote about a bus hurtling down the highway with no one at the wheel. I added a tornado and a pirate and a great white shark, but the story didn't seem quite right. So I asked my dad, and he said, the best stories have plenty of humor. So I changed the great white shark to a monkey, and I put the monkey at the wheel of the bus, and I turned the tornado into turnips, and I dressed the pirate in polka-dotted pajamas. Dad laughed so hard, he popped a shirt button. Even so, this story didn't feel quite right either. Along came Aunt Jane. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm writing a story, the best story, for a contest at the library. I can win a roller coaster ride with my favorite author." "Oh, well then," said Aunt Jane, here's all you need to know. The best stories are the ones that make people cry." So I gave the bus a flat tire. I sent the monkey to the funeral of his pet goldfish. I turned the turnips into onions, and I made the pirate chop every one. There were lots of tears. But the story still wasn't right. My teenage cousin Annika said, "I have news for you. If it's not romantic, it's a loser." So the pirate introduced the monkey to his sister Grace, and they fell in love, and I turned the onions into wedding invitations, and everyone lived happily ever after. Finally, my story was ready, so I read it to my family. So our character has reached out to her family, and her dad said, "Make it funny." Her brother said, "Give it action." Her aunt said, "Make it sad so people cry." And her cousin said, keep it romantic. But none of the stories seem to be just right. Take some think time about why that might be so. Tell your learning buddy, why do you think these stories aren't just right? Let's keep reading and find out. Not enough action, said my brother Tim. Maybe the monkey can fall into the wedding cake, said Dad. That would be really funny. It's hard to cry at a wedding when the groom is a monkey, said Aunt Jane. Annika said it would be perfect if I added a kiss. And all this time, my mother hadn't said a word. So I asked her, what do you think is the best story? She gave me a hug. I think the best story is one that comes from the heart, your own heart. That night after supper, I looked into my own heart and rewrote my story. No more monkey, no more pirate, no more wedding invitations, no more happily ever after. My best news story is about my family and my two best friends, Tara and Josh. It's about my cat, Ollie, who sleeps on his back, and snow days, and toast with strawberry jam. It's about fireworks and rainbows and bike rides. My biggest problem was keeping the story short. Once I started pulling things out of my heart, it was hard to stop. When my story was finished, I turned it in to the judges. Maybe I'll win that roller coaster ride with Ann Miles, and maybe I won't. Either way, I'll be happy. I'll be a winner, because the story I wrote is my own, not somebody else's, and that makes it the best. Now, earlier in the story, our character reached out to her mom, and her mom said, the best story is the story that comes from your own heart. Now, think about what her mom might have meant by that. Take some think time. Now tell your learning buddy, what do you think? Let's see. She gave me a hug. I think the best story is one that comes from the heart, your own heart. I think what mom means is that while writers reach out to their family and friends for experiences, for inspiration, it's really what's inside you that matters most. So Eileen Spinelli wrote this story to help us writers know that we can lean on our friends and family for inspiration, but also we need to look inside our own hearts and think about our own experiences. Now it's your turn. I want you to find your My Best Story graphic organizer from inside your writing packet. This is going to help us organize our thinking. I'm going to show you my example that I came up with from my own heart, my own story, and then your independent work is going to be you completing this graphic organizer and sending it to your teacher. My best story was when I went on a really long hike that I didn't think I would be able to finish, but I did, and it felt really good. Now, you'll notice a couple things that I highlighted where I was a word detective as I was writing this, and I really used my silent E trick to help me know how to spell hike and able and did. You'll also notice the word really, I use it twice, has a Y at the end because I heard real E, and I learned earlier this week that when I read or write through a phonics lens, I know that the Y at the end of a word can say the long E or I sound. First, we looked in a book for a hike that was close to our house, so time to hike. You'll notice there's more words where there's vowels in the middle. Some have a silent E at the end that makes the vowel in the middle say it's a long vowel sound, like hike and time and close. You'll notice that the word that has a short A vowel sound, and the word more has a silent E at the end, but the O in more does not say O. You have to remember, sometimes there's exceptions to the rules. Next, we drove to the trailhead and started up. At first, it was really easy, but it kept going up, up, up. I thought I would quit. You'll see again that I have the word drove has a silent E at the end, which makes the O say the long O sound. And then the word trail has the long A sound in the middle, but it doesn't have a silent E at the end. And then the word easy has a Y at the end, where the E says E as in cherry. After that, I took a break, drank some water, and kept going. Before I knew it, we were at the top and got to start back down. The word break, some, and were are all exceptions to the silent E rule. It is my best story because I was so proud of myself for finishing the hike and being healthy and active. Active is another word that has an E at the end, but the I is a short I sound and not the long I sound, another exception to the rule. Now, it's your turn. If you want to get writing inspiration from your ideas list, you might get that out. You're going to also remember to use your phonics professor words to help you be a strong writer. Now, your independent work today, friends, is to find your My Best Story graphic organizer and write your best story, remembering to use your own family and experiences and places for inspiration for your best story. Now that we've done some really important thinking, I'm going to check back in with Zones over in the family room. Come on, Chewy. Now, think about, what is your mind doing? What is your body feeling? That's a good indicator of a feeling that you might be having. Think about that. Try using an I message. I feel because Now tell your learning buddy. I feel proud because I wrote my best story. You will also remember that your mindful jar, if you're able to ask an adult for help to make one, can also help you get into the green zone and focus your learning if you start to feel distracted. Now I'm going to step forward and we're going to do our affirmations and reminders. Your affirmations for today are, I am strong, I work hard, and I matter. Your independent work today is to complete your My Best Story graphic organizer. You are going to continue building your Read to Self stamina, setting goals, and coming up with win-win solutions for conflict. Make sure you're writing those win-win solutions down and sending them to your teacher. Mr. Kevin's going to put up my address if you have any work or questions that you would like to send me. Otherwise, thanks for joining me again, Tacoma. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Hey kids, we want to see your work. Just send your pictures and your stories to TV Classroom. 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington 98405.